What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero, because World War III is a really bad idea. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome to our show today. It is Thursday, April 16th, 2020. Sure happy it's Thursday. Sure happy it's Thursday. Sure happy it's Thursday. We have got a lot to talk about today. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. That's 800-313-9443. Julie is in our control room today, twiddling the dials, keeping us out of trouble, ready to answer the phone when you call on in, put you on the air with your comments, questions, and opinions here. So let's get right on into it. Now, as you're probably already aware, Judicial Watch has filed lawsuits regarding Hillary Clinton's handling of her private emails, as well as what happened in Benghazi. And the latest development here is that Google has been subpoenaed for all Hillary Clinton emails. And it's thought that they contain backups of communications from her personal server, which her IT specialist, Paul Combetta, reportedly scrubbed using BleachBit. Now, Combetta allegedly used the Google account to transfer Clinton's emails from a laptop to a server at Platte River Networks, after which BleachBit was used to remove all traces from the server, but they may still exist at Google. So Google's been ordered to turn over all of that material, all of the email from January 21st, 2009 until February 1st, 2013, the time that she served as Secretary of State. So good. I would like to see something come of that. All righty, the classified footnotes from the IG report reveal the FBI was warned multiple times that this dossier on Donald Trump was a phony. It was a fake. And they used it anyway to get FISA warrants to spy on Trump. Now, CBS News reporter Catherine Herridge obtained newly declassified footnotes in Horowitz's report showing multiple warnings to the FBI about Hillary's phony Russia dossier. And they went ahead anyway. So tell us that was not a political decision here. All right, we're waiting right now. Apparently Trump is still talking to the governors of the states about when we're going to go back to being normal, and we'll keep an eye on that. Let you know when it happens here. Meanwhile, Trump is threatening to adjourn Congress over the phony pro forma sessions. He wants to basically do some recess appointments. And I'm a little fuzzy at this part of the Constitution. I don't think the president has the authority to adjourn Congress. I think that's up to the congressional leadership, separation of power, separation of the branches of governments. And Trump is threatening to adjourn Congress for not working during the coronavirus crisis. Trump called the pro forma sessions by the House and Senate to prevent him from making recess appointments during extended breaks phony and a dereliction of duty. He warned that he will exercise my constitutional authority to adjourn both chambers of Congress. I don't think he has that. I think that's his ego talking again, like it was the other day when he said he had the final authority to decide when the states go back to normal life. So President Trump says he thinks nations' governors will be happy with guidelines for reopening the economy. I have a feeling there's some arguments going on in the background here. All righty. Apparently, Bernie Sanders' endorsement of Joe Biden is not going over very well. A lot of his supporters are outraged over what they see as his betrayal of the agenda, of the issues. And they may wind up voting for Trump just out of pure spite. But even Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is saying that Biden's sexual assault claim is legitimate to talk about. And today, the Biden campaign issued, of course, the usual denial. You know the old adage in Washington, D.C., nothing is ever true until it's officially denied. Well, it's been officially denied now. Now, the New York Times came out with an article accusing Russia of a disinformation campaign. Nothing new about that. The New York Times is always coming out with articles accusing Russia of this or that, of meddling in the 2016 election, of whatever. But this time the article was trying to say that Russia is behind all the propaganda that seeks to lower confidence in the American health system. And Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said, this is low grade. And they're not going to officially respond to it because it's just It's that, and it is that silly. There are reasons to be concerned about the efficacy and safety of the American health care system, ever since it went from being about health care to being about profit. But have you noticed anytime the American people start talking about the government in less than flattering terms, oh, it's a Russian plot. If you're out there questioning vaccines, you must be working for the Russians. If you're out there concerned about GMOs, you must be working for the Russians. Even Obama jumped in on this one. You know, Putin and COVID-19, they're out there trying to destroy confidence in the American healthcare system. Actually, the American healthcare system is what's destroying confidence in the American healthcare system. Okay, apparently Governor Cuomo's extending their shutdown in New York to May 15th. Here in Indiana, it's supposed to end next Monday. I certainly hope it does. And it's not like Claire and I have any place to go to. We home office anyway. But it's the idea that we're not supposed to that makes us champ at the bit and hop in the car and go down to the market just to pick up, you know, we forgot a box of Kleenex this morning. Over in Syria, a large group of U.S.-backed fighters have now defected to Bashar al-Assad's forces. And apparently, this has been grinding on for 9 years. Coronavirus has taken over the news cycle, as we keep mentioning here. Syria has taken a far back seat in Western media despite the continued presence of American forces on the ground. Damascus is taking advantage of the situation, rolling back U.S. influence and presence in the country. A large group of U.S.-backed and trained fighters from the Al-Tanf camp, where American special forces have maintained a presence for years, have defected to the Syrian army. That is a major, major blow here. China's President Xi Jinping told military officials responsible for the disputed South China Sea to be better prepared for war with the United States, as tensions are clearly rising. Beijing may be bracing for a worst-case scenario with the U.S. And yes, with 4 of our carrier groups now at less than 100% readiness because of the coronavirus, China is stretching its wings, and they're out there basically saying, you know, none of our warships are compromised. But when we get down into coronavirus for real in today's news cycle, Tom Cotton just came out with a completely bizarre theory that we're going to have to share with you. Okay, this is kind of interesting. The U.S. Space Command has issued an announcement claiming it has knowledge that Russia had reportedly conducted a test for a direct ascent anti-satellite missile. Now, there are anti-satellite weapons in existence, but they have to be carried to altitude on other aircraft and then drop launched. This one launches from the ground and hits a satellite. And according to General John Raymond, commander of U.S. Space Command, Russia's direct ascent test proves yet another example that the threats to U.S. and allied space systems are real, serious, and growing. And again, I caution against shooting up each other's satellites in orbit because we could surround our planet with a cloud of shrapnel that makes space travel impossible for decades to come. You know, people who are engaged in war, they want to win now, and hey, it's not our problem, the aftermath. Now, this is a very alarming story, and it came out of the Express in Great Britain. The U.S. Congress has ordered a study into the political and military leadership survivability of China and Russia during wartime. And some people are interpreting this report as a signal the U.S. is preparing for a preemptive strike on the two nations. U.S. intelligence agencies and Strategic Command, which is in charge of U.S. nuclear forces, will carry out the study. Well, I imagine they're probably carrying out a lot of studies all the time that go nowhere, and I certainly hope that that's the case here as well. Another story, this one coming out of The Sun, is saying Third World War would be extremely lethal and fast. Remember Tom Lair's song about World War III? So long, Mom, I'm off to drop the bomb. And then at the end saying, you know, I'll be home an hour and a half from now. So American military bosses have confessed that World War III is almost guaranteed and will be extremely lethal and fast. I hope not. But I hope those military bosses are the first ones to go. All right, so let's talk about the economic news here. The Small Business Administration has run out of money for the Paycheck Protection Program. There was a push for emergency funding to keep it going. The Democrats stalled it. And this is that low and forgivable interest loan system designed to help small businesses hang on to their employees. It ran out of money as of actually yesterday. Brick and mortar department stores will never recover. They were toast before the lockdowns began. We were talking yesterday about iconic stores like Macy's and Sears and, BB and all these. There are about 30 iconic retailers that are already on the edge of bankruptcy. All right, we're going to go ahead and take a phone call from Joe in Tennessee. Aloha, Joe. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike. I got my Trump money yesterday, and I sent a donation to What Really Happened and to a Republic Broadcasting Network.
Well,
so
thank
I took
you
care
very
of
much.
You guys a little bit. I didn't get the full amount, but it was nice. I didn't get a check. My old lady will be getting a check next week, so I'll see if Trump's signature's on it. I might take a picture of it, just because souvenir,
Yes.
I have mixed feelings about getting the money. I mean, I know we're going to pay it back in inflation and taxes and budget deficits, but it's nice to get at least something, because I know the bankers are dipping their beaks and everybody else is they're like pigs at the trough. So at least I got a little kernel of corn, as they say. But what I'm calling about today is Russia and China. And I find it interesting that, could you imagine if Russia released this bioweapon that's causing all this trouble? I mean, we'd probably be at war with them by now, or they'd be screaming to go to war with them. And the demonization of Russia, and then at the same time, the people that just call and defend China all the time, you have to look at, why? Russia, I think the reason Russia's demonized is because it's a nationalist state that kind of got away from the big banking system and the New World Order group. I think that they're not globalist, and they're Christian. They have a Christian ethic now with Putin. And I think the reason, China, of course, is globalist, it's nationalist, it's atheistic communist. So I think when people defend China, it's usually because they have some of those traits or they like some of those traits. And when people, demonize Russia, it's for the same reason. They dislike those traits of Russia, which I very much highly like Russia. I'm very pro-Putin. I think he's done a wonderful job of taking Russia out of the jaws of the banksters and the New World Order Rothschild types and giving them somewhat of an independent country. And that's why they're so demonized by the establishment in this country and England and everywhere else. So I think that during this whole crisis with China, I don't particularly like China. I think that they're our strategic enemy. I heard somebody call the other day and say we have to communicate and talk with them, and obviously we should. But I think it should be when we read them the Riot Act about how they're going to have to pay for the damages that their bioweapon has done on this country. I think that that they should be forced to pay, I think, trillions of dollars by the time we settle out. And I think that the leadership of the people involved need to be punished. And if the Chinese don't do that, then it could lead to some form of punitive damage. I don't know what. I would maybe slam a big cruise missile into the Wuhan bioweapons laboratory or something to that
would
effect.
Make a lot better to blow that place up and scatter whatever's inside there all to the four winds here. What do you feel about the people inside the United States who sent that $3.7 million to the lab to get them to work on that coronavirus?
Oh, absolutely. I want them arrested yesterday. I want to see people involved in this on both sides. I said the other day they need to be put up against the wall. And I would suggest dropping some kind of a bomb that would kill any kind of, through heat or thermo, or even some kind of weapon that would sterilize. That's the whole point of dropping a bomb on it, is to basically sterilize the place by bombing it. I mean, you can do that. There's certain weapons that can reach a certain temperature that would destroy anything. That any kind of bioweapon that might be present. And I think that should reciprocal. I think if there's American involvement in this, I think anybody that's involved with it should be bankrupted. For instance, Bill Gates. I think he should have every dime taken from him if his fingerprints are anyway involved in this, and then he should be executed. Yes, I think that this is what this has done to the global economy, what this has done to the world, the people that have been inconvenienced and die because of this. I think that we need serious action, and there should be a note. There should be a warning to the future people that want to delve in these kind of monstrous science and technology. That remember what happened with the Wuhan virus. Remember what happened to those guys. They were shot, you know. And I'm really upset about it. I mean, I don't know how you can't be, you know. So and once again, I do find it interesting the difference in. It just seems like there's so many people that want to defend the Chinese, and I think that it's like if you had a neighbor that was screwing around in his garage and he blew up his garage and blew your house up too, you know, killed your kids and whatever, you'd be pretty upset about that guy. It wouldn't be like wanting to go talk to him, you know. So I think, once again, the Chinese need to pay a price for this, and any Americans involved with the Chinese need to be arrested and pay a price for this also. It's obvious. And hopefully it doesn't, become too big of a deal, a snowball, more of a tit for tat. But right now they've given us the tit, and now it's time for us to tat back because it's caused a lot of suffering in this country. And not only that, the fact that they knew what happened and they sat on the information for a week or two while it spread, that's like incredibly rotten thing for them to do. So people involved in that process needs to be punished and made an example of. The biggest part of what I'm saying is about making an example of this. It's kind of like, what you had to do with the Nazis. You had to make an example that this is unacceptable. And for future generations, this is unacceptable. So otherwise, as science and technology increases, these kind of bioweapons and race-specific bioweapons and things, they're gonna become, pretty prevalent. And that's basically what I have to say today. So thank you for hearing me out. And once again, all your listeners, if you get that check or any money from the government, cut Mike and RBN in on a little bit. It'll help them out so we have a voice.
All right. Well, thank you very much for the kind words, and thank you very much for the phone call. We're going to switch over to Corey in Connecticut. Hello, Corey. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike. I want to talk about fake news, but first, I'd like to start off with a quote from Marcus Aurelius that I came across. It is not death that a man should fear, but he should fear never beginning to live.
Yes, that's a good one.
So I feel. I got a question Benjamin Franklin on his famous quote when he said, "Those who give up essential liberty in order to obtain a little temporary security deserve neither liberty nor security." I said that right?
Yes, that's the quote.
It seems to me we don't have. It's not little, Mike. It's not temporary. We live in a full-blown police state right now, and it appears to be permanent. I mean, that man who was arrested in the park for playing catch with his 6-year-old daughter, and those 4 thug cops came up and arrested him. I just couldn't handle that. So, I have a really difficult time with things like that.
Well, I think probably most people do, and they're trying to get us used to it. I'm not going to get used to it. Absolutely not.
I can't get used to that. Anyway, on fake news, I don't have a problem with President Trump.
Okay, I'm going to have to put you on hold. I'm going to have to put you on hold. We've got to take a break for commercials. Do not hang up. I'm going to come right back to you after these words from our sponsors. And welcome back to our show. Here we're talking with Corey in Connecticut. We're talking about fake news. And Corey, if you could kind of pick up where you left off.
Yeah, my problem with President Trump is that he doesn't promote alternative media, people like yourself. And with that in mind, I'd like to make a very simple proposal and provide a simple argument. Any news anchor or correspondent, especially those working inside the White House, they should be voted into office. My argument straightforward. Because people like that, they have tremendous political power and clout, even more so than, congressmen. I mean, just look what they did to Ron Paul. They destroyed him. And that's not right. And if they were voted into office, scoundrels like Jim Costas wouldn't be there. In fact, I'd vote you in definitely.
Well, thank you.
And people like Greg Hunter, I like. Gerald Celente, I like. Anyway, you guys, I think you speak for the people. And CNN, they're just a propaganda agency. They're not a news agency. They're a propaganda agency.
Yes.
And I was thinking, the Bill of Rights should be clarified. It should be a Bill of Rights for individuals, not corporations, because corporations, as we know it, they already have all the power, so they don't need enumerated delegate or rights delegated to them. They should be restricted. Their rights should be highly restricted, whereas the rights of the people should not be. But anyway, I wouldn't mind seeing you as a news correspondent inside the White House. I think that would be good for the American people.
Well, thank you. And if the job is offered, I'll probably accept it, but I don't expect it to be offered anytime soon.
But you'd have to be voted in. That's my point.
Oh, okay.
Because then the people have power, and not news corporations. And we all know news corporations are just propaganda machines, and they're evil. But anyway,
well, they're just doing what their owners tell them to do, and they're direct owners and they're advertisers like Monsanto.
And well, their owners are like Satan and Beelzebub.
Well, now anyway, we're going to get nasty emails from Satan and Beelzebub. I'm going to say, I'm insulted. I'm telling you, I'm insulted now. How dare you equate me with those news people?
Well, anyway, take care, and I like the work that you do.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. We're going to switch over to Peter in California. Hello, Peter. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike. I totally agree with what's been said so far by Tom in the last show. But listen, it's the banks that own everything. It's the Federal Reserve that can print all this money. That's why Ron Paul got submarined. They're going to own all the publicly held corporations. And by the way, isn't it interesting that corporations under Citizens United have total freedom of speech, but yet those same corporations can deny us on Facebook or YouTube or whatever. Yes. They can deplatform us. They can deny us PayPal, all that stuff. They can take it. All comes from Federal Reserve. They all own all that. And you know what? You know why they don't like Russia? Well, they don't like Russia because of the dollar. They don't like Russia because Putin threw out the Jewish oligarchs, which most of them were. They don't like Russia because Russia opposed the imposition of another bunch of Jewish oligarchs in the Ukraine. They don't like China because China is a competitor for financial supremacy with the yuan versus the dollar. They're also a military competitor. But the big thing is there's no way that the people who own the banks, the ethnic group that owns the banks, can infiltrate China with a fifth column the way they've done here. They know that if China becomes ascendant and supreme, which eventually they sort of will, that they can't have China because they can't control China. Without the dollar, without the Federal Reserve of the banks, and without a fifth column within the United, like what they have in the United States and in Russia, by the way, and in England, they can't manipulate us the way they manipulate everybody else. Tell me that I'm wrong here.
No, you're right. That's many of the agendas that are at work there. And there's one other that we need to keep in mind. Right now, there's a lot of anger building in this country towards the lockdown and the flat-out botching of the coronavirus response. And what they're trying to do is redirect our anger at our government's enemies, China and Russia. don't be angry with us. It's not our fault. China did this to us deliberately, and, you should go be angry with them.
And they're also they're just piling on to Russiagate. Russia's vilified. They're bad. They can continue the narrative and lessen us coming back and saying, well, that was complete bull crap, right? Russiagate. But now there's more Peter, they can add on. Yeah.
Peter, I got to put you on hold. Got to take another break for commercials. Don't hang up, and we'll be right back. And welcome back to our show here. We're talking with Peter in California, actually in Los Angeles. And Peter, just kind of pick up where you left off.
Well, Mike, it's the banks, and the banks are going to the Federal Reserve. We all know who controls these. We all know it. And they're going to come out of here and having brought up every single publicly held company and control them all, BlackRock, Vanguard, all these things that they own. They're going to control it all. Every single mom and pop and privately held company is going to be out of business. Every house is going to be, all the houses will be underwater. People will be evicted and the house will be repossessed. They'll take all that. They'll take it all. And to criticize them is against the law in 28 states. And you know what? Listen, and if you criticize them, you're labeled a white supremacist. Well, listen, I'm a white guy. I'm not a white. My family is mixed. My wife, my child, they're mixed. What I am is not a white victim, and I will not be allow them to shout me down and without a fight, and take everything that we have, hijack our foreign policy, fight all their wars, and it's pitiful the way they control us, even to the point where our own government recently, with the 1 million masks that did indeed go to the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, and where they were telling the U.S. Army and Marine Corps, which doesn't number to 1 million, by the way, the active anyways, to use scarves. Our own government treats them, of course, they're owned by the bankers. We're second class compared to them. We're second class compared to them. And it drives me crazy. And people won't talk about it, can't talk about it. It's illegal to talk about it. They're afraid to talk about it. But we have to do something about this. And it all comes back, the fount of all their power is the Federal Reserve and the central banks. You take that away, and they're screwed. That's why they can't let China win.
Well, that's why they've made war on every country that tries to break away from private central banking. That's what led to the war in Iraq, when Iraq wanted to sell their oil for euros instead of dollars. That's what led to the takeover of Libya, when Gaddafi, reformed their economic system to break it away from private central banking. And that's it. Look at how many wars have been started simply to keep the world enslaved to private central banks.
Yeah, and they're going to, when they come out of this, Mike, they're gonna. It's not like they don't control most everything now, but they're going to control everything. And this agenda with implanting chips and all that stuff and no cash, we're going to be like slaves on the plantation.
We're going to be cattle.
We'll be cattle. We'll be serfs and cattle. Just like, by the way, that's what Goyim means, cattle. That's the way they look at us. That's the way they talk about us to each other. We're goyim. We're cattle. We're there to be fleeced, to be milked, to be hewers of wood and all that stuff for them, and to serve them. Their religion even comes out and admits it.
Yes,
their top rabbis come out and say that. So they come right out and say it. So that's the way they look at it, and these are the guys that are being controlled. A shiksa, right. Meaning, whatever. You know what I mean.
All right. Well, thank you for the phone call. We're going to let you go. And before we take more phone calls, I want to take a quick look at the mailbox here. Answer to the caller asking China to pay for the coronavirus. How much should the U.S. be asked to pay for Iraq, Libya, Syria, Afghanistan, Yemen, et cetera, et cetera? A few hundred of quadrillions. And then somebody who knows the Constitution better than I do says that Trump does have the power to adjourn the Congress under Article 2, Section 3 of the Constitution. All right, we're going to go back to the phones here to Steve in Florida. Hello, Steve. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Well, I was just thinking about the longer this quarantine, the longer we shut down for doing our business and commerce, some more problems we're going to see. I already told you in the hospital, you got probably a 3-month behind schedule now, and the longer this goes on, it's going to get really bad. It's going to get very ugly when people finally start to, come out and rush to the hospital to get their procedures done. We're going to be in a big mess there, a huge jam, how to figure out who goes first. We're going to have to triage even the elective surgeries. It's going to be very, very chaotic. But I was thinking about, the longer this goes on, I was starting to think about the farmers who cannot get their plants in the ground yet. They have to schedule. A farmer knows there's a time to plant, there's a time to growth, and there's a time to harvest with the maturity of their plants. If we don't get these farmers don't get out there and actually get their plants planted, we are going to see a serious food shortage in agriculture. And,
Yes.
of course, you're not going to have pickers, too, because, the pickers got to be 6 feet away from each other and with their masks on. I mean, we're looking at some serious problems here in the future if we just don't get back to work here soon. And I was also thinking about the college graduates. Not only do they have these huge college loans that they'll never be able to pay off, probably most of them, because they can't get a decent job to pay them off, but now you've even limited them even more so, because corporations are going to be laying off people, not growing, getting bigger. So that college kid now can't even get the minimum wage job because, those are disappearing. And the good paying jobs, those aren't going to be there either. So we get further in the hole as far as the student loan debt goes. But I'm concerned about the farmer issue. If they don't get planted, they don't plant their crops on time, there'll be no time for maturity and no time to pick.
Yes. No, we're really going to feel it come the autumn.
Yeah. Another thing I also thought about, Mike, was, we worry about who has nuclear weapons. We have all these agencies that run around and inspectors to make sure that everybody's in compliance with our rules, by the way. And our rules are subjective. We like you, you get nuclear weapons. We don't like you, we don't want you to have them. And we know that nuclear weapons are only a deterrent to make sure they're not invaded. They're not to be used just as a deterrent to make sure nobody invades your backyard. So I started thinking about that. We have all these agencies, regulatory agencies for nuclear weapons to monitor where they are around the world. But who's monitoring the bioweapons labs? These labs which violate all human rights laws. They violate all human rights laws. We have people working in labs trying to find viruses and bacteria that could wipe out civilization if they want to use it as a weapon. Nobody seems to care about that.
Well, there is the Biological Weapons Convention, but there's no verification built into the treaty, and the United States has opposed 2 attempts to add verification.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just amazing that we're in this situation here that for some reason you don't get nuked and killed by a nuclear bomb, but you could get wiped out by a bioweapon here, a pathogen. Yeah. Nobody seems to be too worried. They're pointing a finger at Russia now, but let's be honest about it. How many bioweapons labs do we have here in the United States? Let's be honest about this.
Well, not too many here in the United States, but the United States runs biological weapons labs in other countries, the same way the CIA has torture centers in other countries for deniability.
Right. Exactly. That's just something to think about. Good show, Mike. Take care.
All right. Thanks an awful lot. We're going to switch over to Glenn in Philadelphia. Aloha, Glenn. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. Hey, I have a point I wanted to mention about the Wuhan Biolab. But first, is Steve a host? Steve's voice sounds familiar. So is Steve a host on the network?
Yeah, that's Steve Elkins.
Elkins, okay. And I sometimes find that annoying when hosts have to call into other people's shows, and they have their very own platform on the network, and then they have to call and burn up time for callers for someone else's show. I think that's a little bit selfish.
No, Steve is always welcome here. All of the hosts
But,
are welcome on my show.
Well, okay. I just think it's a bit selfish when you have your own platform and your own time to use up other people's time. But anyway, oh, and I was wondering, I understand if it's a little too early for you to come out on this just yet, but I'm wondering if there's any truth to the rumor that President Trump has nominated you to be the chief civilian liaison for the Space Force.
No, there is no truth to that rumor. He heard that my first order would be to get the ground crews to dress up as apes every time a spaceship came back to Earth, and apparently he doesn't find that as funny as I do.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's an amusing one. But okay, about the Wuhan biolab. One huge problem I see about this, we had the one fellow wants us to start, I guess he's seen an outbreak one time too many. He wants to use a fuel air bomb to burn up everything and everything next to it. But the one problem with the proximity of this outbreak to the Wuhan biolab is that it's circumstantial. Okay, so China could easily allege that an enemy released this on their soil in close proximity to create plausible deniability. And to
China's already made that accusation. China's already made that accusation at one point.
Right, exactly. So if you value the concept of evidence before you go blowing people up, I don't think the evidence is ever really going to be had. And yet another take on it is that the Chinese may have chosen to do it starting on their own soil for several reasons. It's threw a complete wet blanket on all the movements and protests of national populism worldwide. It snuffed out the Hong Kong protests. It snuffs out the Yellow Vest in France. It certainly prevented anyone on mainland China from starting any similar movement. So they got to put down national populism protests all over the place. It knocked them to their knees first, such that by the time they're back up on their feet, their other potential enemies are still on their knees, which John Moore pointed out to me was sort of a principle of Sun Tzu. So there are numerous groups that have potential motives for wanting to do this, if you're assuming that it was indeed a weapon and not natural from bats or whatever in the wet market. So, getting to the bottom of it is almost as slippery as trying to get to the bottom of 9/11. There's plausible deniability on all sides, and there could never be a justification for any military action based on what little information we have.
No, I agree with you, and I'm not even sure that a fuel air bomb would be effective, considering the heavy walls of a BSL-4 lab. It worked in the movie Outbreak because you were dealing with jungle huts and ordinary houses. But to take out a biological weapons lab with the kind of heavy construction it has to have for BSL-4 containment, not to mention the vaults where the samples are being kept, you're talking about a small tactical nuclear weapon. But the whole beauty of biological weapons is deniability. There's no way to tell where they came from. Senator Cotton is out there insisting that the release from the Wuhan lab may have been accidental, but that China wanted it to go worldwide so that the whole world went down economically at the same time, and it wasn't just China. I think that's a little bit far out there, but that's the kind of thinking that we're seeing coming out of the corporate media. It's this rush to blame China, blame China, blame China, and they're finally out there saying, yes, accidental release from a lab, which, we were saying here on this show on Republic Broadcasting, I think close to a month ago. That was our leading theory.
Right, and if globalists with bioweapons want to continue to create problems, we already have problems with swine flus and bird flus. There's this new outbreak with turkeys and everything. If you mess up the agricultural planning cycle with all this, stopping the economies, and unleash some swine and bird flus, pretty soon you can have the whole globe starving at worldwide famine, and push your globalist agenda by metering out the food. That's about all I have, Mike. Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks an awful lot. We're going to switch over to Tom in Florida. Hello, Tom. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind today?
Yeah, hello, Michael. Good day to you. I'm going to talk about the scamdemic. But before I go to the scamdemic, Michael, you did have a call in a couple days back, which hit a great point. Lenny hit a great point with Bill Gates. The same guy is talking about. Lenny brought up a fact that now that we have this virus, all these people are going to start having babies in 9 months. So
yes.
how's that? that's going worldwide. Imagine how many millions of babies are going to be born over this thing. Because, I mean, let's look at the point here. This is nuts. I mean, and you got this moron Gates and his criminal activities, and Soros and all these other rich billionaire criminals. No, like I said the other day, these people don't deserve billions of dollars for what? I mean, come on. This is nonsense with the money these imbeciles have. But let's get what I really want to talk about, Michael, is by the way, did you see what's happening in New Jersey, Michael? They found 17 bodies in a nursing home, dead bodies?
Yes. One was in a shack.
No. Yeah. Okay, so there's 17 bodies they found. Who's responsible for that? Who's going to be held accountable to that, Michael? I mean, these people were in nursing home. What were they, 80 years old, 90 years old, 100 years old? We don't even know their age of these people. More likely they're old, over their 80, I guess, 80 years old. This whole scamdemic is about people in their 82, 85, the 92-year-old range dying from, being elderly and getting sick because they got a virus or a flu, whatever it is. So there probably is a virus out there. Yeah, absolutely. But what they're doing, like I told you the other day, Michael, with the polio they never shut the government out for polio, and polio is a heck of a lot worse than this nonsense.
Yes.
Okay, so this is absurd. It's all about now. You got the moron governor in California want to give these illegals $500 a piece. There's 8 million over there. So if you got 8 million illegals getting $500, Michael, how much money is that? I can't even figure it out. I mean, it's insane, absurdity.
Yeah, it's about $4 billion.
Okay, that's a lot of money. You can build a lot of hospitals, get a lot of masks, and help a lot of American black and white get housing and all kinds of stuff. But you're worried about an illegal invasion here. This is like, I'm telling you, this whole thing about what they're trying to do to Trump, Michael, and I hope everybody in your audience understands this. It's about the Supreme Court. They don't want Trump to get those 3 more picks on the Supreme Court next election, the next term, and it's also about illegal immigration. They want to keep flooding this country with 20, 30, 40 million more people. And you got this moron Gates, Bill Gates, who's like, oh, the world can't handle that. Here in the meantime, Gates, you got, what, $60 billion? Why don't you start spending $50 billion of it? Keep $10 billion for yourself and spend $50 billion to secure our borders and our country and help this country stop all these millions of people that are going to be pouring in here. Okay? This is absurd what's going on with these rich criminals. Okay? And you have that bumbling Biden, Michael, that Joe Biden is an idiot. I mean, and the people are actually wanting this guy. You got Michelle Obama out there going, oh, she's going to get star power, and we got Oprah lined up for Joey. I mean, what is this nonsense? This is hypocritical, communist, Bolshevikism nonsense. Exactly what this is. And you got this leftist communist media.
Anyway, Tom, I'm going to have to. Tom, I got to cut you off. I'm sorry. I apologize. We got to take another commercial break. More phone calls when we come back from these words from our sponsors. And welcome back to our show here. We're going to go back to the phones to Paul in New Jersey. Hello, Paul. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind today?
Michael, we Americans should really be ashamed about the way we have not fought this disease. From the beginning of the so-called quarantine, which never really took place, to the current present time. And by the way, to bring up some of the statistics, are you aware that in January there were 328,000 Chinese travelers who were allowed into the United States? And after the quarantine in February, there was 37,968. So really, a 90% quarantine is called an ineffective quarantine. It's called a failed quarantine at face value. And so Donald Trump never did his due diligence to follow up on whether his subordinates were enacting the quarantine. Likewise, if you look at the statistics coming out, and this is through the I-94 forms, through people entering the United States. In Japan in January, there were 277,000. In February, 295,000. South Korea, 237,000 in January. In February, 138,000. So there was a reduction, but still plenty of people to help in bring the disease in. And finally, in February, it was 74,000 From Italy, it was in January, it was 74,000, and in February, 69,000. So, again, it was a sieve. There was no quarantine. There was nothing. So that's the first indictment why we're a failed nation. And we should be ashamed of ourselves with this disease. This is the behavior of a third world country. If you looked at actual first world countries like Taiwan and the way they fought this, or if you look at nations like South Korea, they fought this in a more methodical manner and were much more diligent about this than the United States. Because when fighting diseases like this, you know, it's a long slog. You have to be diligent. You have to be thorough. You have to be methodical. And it takes time. Okay? And so if you have American pundits like Candace Owens insisting on her freedom to not wear a mask, that isn't going to help defeat this disease. The way to fight the disease is you put aside your temporary insisting on absolute freedom, and you do the good citizen behavior, and you slap a mask on, all right, for the people who don't want a mask out there. Because I'm going to tell you something. Listen, I looked up the stats over at the coronavirus website through Johns Hopkins. Now, I compared two nations, right?
Yeah.
The Czech Republic has 10 million people, just like Sweden. Okay.
Okay,
you
Paul,
want me
I
to wrap it
got
up?
on hold. Yeah, I'm going to
okay, I only have a minute or two left. Okay, thank you.
Okay. After station identification, we're going to come right back to you. And welcome back to the show here. We're talking with Paul in New Jersey. And Paul, if you would just sort of pick up where you left off.
Yeah, well, I wanted to compare two nations that are somewhat similar in population size, and that would be the Czech Republic and Sweden. Now, the Czechs, self-quarantined, and they actually made almost a domestic, a project of people making their own mask and mandated that people wear masks in public, while Sweden did the carefree, we'll develop herd immunity. Well, so far from what's going on, Sweden has 1,600 deaths and over 11,000 cases, while the Czechs have 6,000 cases and only 168 deaths, with both having a population of 10 million. So clearly the Czech approach is more like the Asian approach, as Taiwan, South Korea, and they're able to lower the incidence of this disease, clearly the superior method. And so that's why the people out there who are fighting the mask agenda are really, in my opinion, not being good citizens. They're not doing their part. I think it's inconsiderate, and I think you're going to only slow up our inevitable getting back to normalcy. My last point is I want to talk about is just about where was the CIA back in January? You know, supposedly ABC News came out in November. ABC News said that in November, certain agencies in the American intelligence system knew there was a virus going on in China. Right? This was through George Stephanopoulos the other day.
Yes.
Right? So how does it take 6 weeks before it finally comes to the president's desk? What about that? So why are we blaming China for not telling us everything? Right? When the fact of the matter is, what is our CIA doing? Why are we giving them $15 billion a year? Aren't they supposed to have people swarming all over China? I mean, supposedly they're our number one economic and political rival. So why does it take 6 weeks before they were alerted to a virus outbreak in China, in Wuhan, in November, late November, and then 6 weeks later, it finally gets on the president's desk as a PDB. What happened there in our government?
Well, somebody definitely dropped the ball, or they didn't think it was that important, or it was just going to be China's problem. Like I said, right now, the emphasis seems to be there's a lot of anger building among the American people over this whole lockdown nonsense and the face masks and all of it. And there's an effort clearly to redirect that anger toward the government's enemies rather than the government itself.
Yeah, well, as for this being a hoax, for the hoaxers out there, you can come to my town in a couple of weeks And after the quarantine is over, I can arrange for you to meet the new widow, because there's somebody in town who died from this virus, and he was in his early 60s. And he was a young man. I consider it his early 60s. So to say this is harmless or just not so bad, it's not the normal flu, people. It's not. It's a little worse than the normal flu. And
it's a viral pneumonia.
Right, and it's lucky. And by the way, I would argue it's lucky it's coming this late in the season, because if it came earlier in the season, I think it would have been even worse. If this had started in America back in November. So either way, I think this was something to take seriously. I think it's still something to take seriously, because I indirectly know my wife's coworker. Her father passed away. So this is deadly. So put on your masks, and we have to take the long slog on this, and we'll get through it. And on that note, thank you, Michael.
All right, thank you. We're going to switch over to Dan in Texas. Hello, Dan. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Mike,
You're on the air.
to talk about farming, but after that call, I couldn't agree with Paul more. There's absolutely no evidence that wearing a mask does anyone any good. And I do not wear one. I will not wear one. This is a scamdemic. And it's people like him running around like the chicken littles that the sky's falling. And I'm not going to wear my mask, Paul. And if it makes you feel any better, since you think it does you any good, wear two for me, pal. Now, I actually called about farming.
Yes.
Maybe I'm missing something here. What is it to prevent a farmer from going out and planting his seed?
Well, the fact that seeds have been declared a non-essential item and farmers can't get them.
You've got to be kidding me.
No, I'm not kidding. I'm forgetting which state it is, but the governor said seeds were not essential items, and unless he's, carrying seeds from his previous harvest in that state, they can't get them.
Oh, but Amazon can deliver the virus to your front door every day, all day long.
Yes.
God, some governors, some of these people are just dumber than dirt, Mike. Just absolutely dumber than damn dirt.
Well, I keep looking at the fact they're shutting all the church, and I'm not a religious man, but I find it very bizarre that they're shutting down the churches as non-essential, but the abortion clinics are still open.
Yeah, exactly. Couldn't agree with you more. It's all a bunch of damn nonsense from start to finish. And I'll leave with thanking Paul for wearing two masks for me, because I think he's full of baloney. And I'll join Miss Owens on this one. Thank you, Mike.
All right. Thank you. We're going to switch over to Steve in Florida. Steve, welcome back to the show. What's on your mind?
Boy, you've got some of the sharpest callers, some of the best callers, I tell you. Very amusing. Very amusing. Hey, thanks for supporting other hosts calling in, because I support other hosts calling to my show. And I'm not here to toot my own horn. I'm here to bring some information if I see something or an observation. But I'm going to tell you about, you're talking about masks. I did a little research. My wife said the other day she was watching TV, and they talked about the effectiveness of filtering out the particulate, the respiratory particulate in different masks, what's effective and what's not effective. And here's your numbers. Your N95, of course, filters out supposedly 95 of the respiratory particulate. Your surgical mask, this doesn't make much sense, but around 65 to 67%. And I was always wondering, well, if that's true, then why aren't they upgrading to the N95 mask in the operating room? They should be the highest level in the operating room, but they're not, which is strange, because they are using surgical masks there. And your typical bandana only gives you about 5%, 4 to 5% protection. That's it. And the percentage I saw, that was 19.4%, but that was a 4-layered bandana. That's all it was. They're very porous. If you can see through it, respiratory droplets can get in. And these N95 masks, when we do them in the hospital, we're actually fitted for these hospitals. These masks, they do an aspartame test, a spray test, and when they put them on, they have to find the right one that fits your face because not everybody fits the right one. But I just want to let you know those numbers, though. So if you're wearing a bandana, you're protecting yourself about 4%. That's about it.
Well, yeah, you should have at least an N95 if you can't afford an N100, which are very expensive. And like I said, I was thinking about, those painter's masks that cover the eyes as well as the mouth, and the cartridges,
Right.
The filter cartridges are replaceable.
Yeah, they are. And those are hard to find now because I used to get those at Harbor Freight when I paint, and they're gone. They're history.
Yeah.
Actually, our local Harbor Freight here has donated all their gloves and all the masks that they have, anything that's filtration, they've donated to area hospitals. So that's gone. You won't find those around anymore. Maybe on Amazon you might. But I did bump into a guy at Lowe's the other day, and I just had to laugh about this little Indian guy that it not only had the mask on, it was just one of those cheap little white masks, really not that effective, but he also had the face shield. So he had a face shield and a mask. I gotta laugh at that. That's pretty funny stuff. I mean, I don't know. How do you figure you're going to get it through your eyeballs? But he had a mask and a face shield.
Yeah, you can get the virus through your eyes. That's why they tell you not to touch your face.
Well, I think they're talking about your mouth and your nose. That's the respiratory route. But I just thought it was funny that he actually had a face mask and eye shield. The whole it was like a painter's one or a welder's type kind of helmet. It was quite hilarious. That's it for me, Mike. I won't call back, but thanks again for supporting other hosts. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, thank you very much for the phone call. We're going to switch over to Jason in Colorado. Hello, Jason. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike. Thanks for taking my call. I'm a commercial, industrial, agriculturalist farmer. Thousands of acres. There's no shortage of seed in the heartland of America. The shortage is with some of these states, whereas the governor has declared that some of these products are non-essential. But as far as industrial agriculture is concerned, we haven't missed a beat out here. The commodity prices are down, but we're still going, man. And
well, good.
We just are. We just are. And nobody be worried. I suppose these lockdowns and that are going to cause some transportation issues. But as far as producing food for America, we're right on top of the game. So. I would, try to let people know that agriculture, America is still on the job. We're all essential.
Well, I agree you're essential. I'm a farm kid myself here, and that's very reassuring to know because I remember when I saw that article where this one state governor had said seeds were not an essential product. I said, what is this person thinking?
Well,
maybe they were thinking flower seeds.
Well, it's the regular vegetable seeds at Lowe's, Home Depot, places like this, where in some states they blocked off the aisle because of overzealous, governors that are, trying to assert their authority where they really have none. So as far as people getting their bread and their milk, as soon as some of these legitimate issues get worked out and America's opened up again, I think that everything will be just fine.
All right. Well, thank you very much for the information, and thank you very much for the phone call. And before we take our next phone call, apparently Trump's 6 p.m. Eastern press conference is going to be about reopening America. So they've teased that on Fox News. We're going to go back to the phones to Dustin in New Jersey. Hello, Dustin. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
It's me, Lemming, Doomsday Dustin.
Hi, Doomsday. How you doing?
Hanging in there. Hey, Mike, I don't know. Do you have an Aldi's or a Lidl's in Indiana, like by you?
Do I have a what?
A Lidl's or an Aldi's? They're like German food stores.
I may well, but I haven't really, between my hospitalization earlier this year and now the stay-at-home orders, I haven't gotten out to really explore. I understand that there are some very fine German markets around here. It's a very German part of the state.
Yeah, because they have face shields for the employees,
that they have. I guess they got made to protect their eyes, and yeah, Steve has a right to call in. You know, that's his right to call in. I don't have a problem with that. Everybody has a right to call in and voice their opinion. If they don't agree with you, they don't agree. If they agree with you, then they agree with you. But everybody should be able to call in and say what they got to say. And you know, Mike, I have two N100s, but I have a backup gas mask with a P3 ULPA filter. That's basically, it's not the nuclear, biochemical, radiological big canister. It's actually just it's an ULPA filter. It's not a HEPA on there. ULPA is like better. It's 0.99999. It's you know, and all it is it's a filter. There's nothing else in there, and no charcoal, you know, for the chemical weapon type of stuff. But like that's my last resort if I got to wear that, you know. But I mean, yeah, I mean, bandanas don't do crap. I see a lot of people wearing that, and yeah, you might as well not wear anything. But I mean, and again, if that's all you got, I don't know. I mean, somebody mentioned vacuum bag filters. Depends on the vacuum bag, but possibly, you know, they could be better than a bandana. But Mike, Paul from New Jersey was right though. Like that dude from Texas. I'm sorry, man. You don't want to wear a mask. Why? Is that like, I don't understand. No shoes, no shirt, no service. No shoes, no shirts, no gloves, no mask, no shirt. What's the problem? You're not protecting just yourself. You're protecting other people if you have it and you don't know you have it. I noticed he said it's a scam also. So there's that scam crap going on also where there's just, I don't know who's telling him this. You know, you had it yesterday when I called it a plandemic. It's a scam. It's not a scam, folks. I mean, I don't know where you're getting this from, just because you don't think you have it. But, Mike, you know, you go to the store with the mask, and so do Claire. But, I mean, other people in the store could have it. If you don't wear a mask, you get it, you're going to pass it on to your wife.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just, I think it's a selfishness with certain people. They don't want to be bothered, or they don't, I mean, you might not be, like, if you go to Walmart, they give you masks. Like, what's the problem? You know, I can see if you don't want to make your own mask, but at the stores most of them are handing out masks. So I don't understand why there's like that has nothing to do with patriotism. I thought patriotism was being a well-informed citizen. You know, do some research on stuff. You know, don't go, it's a scam, I'm not going to go along with it. I mean, is the flu a scam? You can get sick from the flu and die.
Yes.
Right? If this is worse, which it is, don't you want to protect yourself a little better? You know, I mean, it's not like you wear the mask, you come out of the store, you take it off. Like, I don't know what the big deal is with certain people that just don't want to be bothered by it. It really pisses me off. but Mike, before I get up, but Paul from New Jersey is right with the Sweden. Sweden is what we would be 1,000-fold, Mike, without the lockdown. Okay? Yes. Sweden is the poster child for not doing a lockdown. Okay? And they only got 10 million people living there. So, but the thing is, I don't have no problem with bringing the economy back. It's bringing it back the right way, right? Like they say, in a phased way. You know, you do it in phases. Basically, you bring it back slowly. If it don't work, you got to close it back up, right? If you bring it all back at once and everybody runs back to work, what do you think is going to happen? It'll be a disaster. You know, so you got to do it slowly and steadily. And that other person's right. The trucks are going to the store, folks. The economy's not totally shut down. You had a truck driver last week who called, I believe. The trucks are going. And Mike, I went to the store today and a couple of days ago, and there's no thermometers on the shelf, still no toilet paper, hardly any paper towels. But there's meat on the shelves, there's canned goods. I mean, I know there's people suffering out there, but we all got to do this right. If this is a war, Trump says we're in a war. Well, if you're in a war, you're just going to quit the war and open up everything, then that means you're giving up. You got to fight this thing, man. You got to do it right. If you don't do it right, then I don't know what else to say with that. Then we're in the fight. You know, and that's all I got to say, Mike. Have a good show, and hope Claire's doing good.
Claire's doing very, very well indeed, and she's out in the kitchen rattling those pots and pans right now with her amazing red sauce here. All right, I'm going to fit in a couple of quick news stories here in this next minute here. We've got more callers waiting on the line, but I don't want to take them through the commercial. Apparently, what is really shaking the shale oil business is a sudden decline in production. The wells are not producing the way they were supposed to. And we're looking at, as Dustin was saying, the trucks are still going to the stores, and we're looking at the situation of overcapacity and oversupply, which signals a massive deflation ahead. Okay, we're going to take another break here for commercials. And when we come on back, we've got more callers waiting on the line, so stay tuned. Oh, I'm sorry. I misread the clock again. I got about another 10 seconds here. I'm trying to do too many things. Here comes the break for the commercials. We'll be right back. And welcome back to our show here. And before we go back to the phones here, a quick reminder that Republic Broadcasting is in the middle of a fundraising drive. Obviously, that front site deal is really, really good. Now that I'm here on the mainland, I may try and get out there myself for some refresher training with the firearms. But if you can't afford the $500, which will get you the Lifetime Commander's membership, but you want to send something along anyway, the postal address to send a check, money order, or if you prefer anonymity cash, is Republic Broadcasting Network, 2251 Double Creek Drive, number 302, Round Rock, Texas, 78664. The phone number where you can make a credit or debit card donation is 800-724-2719, extension 3. The network thanks you. All right, let's go back to the phones here to, let's see, Jim in Montana. Jim, hello, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Michael, how you doing? It's been a minute since I've called. I'd like to talk to you about this research and discovery that Andrew Kaufman and some of his other medical friends have made. Andrew Kaufman is a PhD, and he's held supervisor positions in medical centers, and some of his colleagues that helped do this research and put this together are also MDs and PhDs. And what they found is discrepancy in COVID-19 tests.
Yes.
You know that the COVID-19 tests, they don't actually test for the virus. In fact, there has not been any genetic material found of the virus. There hasn't been any viral cells actually collected yet. So those tests, what those
Well,
tests
then how did they
test
read out
for,
the genome? I mean, they've read out the complete genome of COVID-19. They had to have a cell to get that.
Oh, they have. From what I last heard about 4 or 5 days ago, they haven't found any genetic material comprising of the COVID-19.
Okay, well, there was an article in one of the British magazines that showed electron micrographs of the virus actually entering a cell.
The virus actually entering the cell?
Yes.
When was this?
About a week ago.
Okay. All right. Well, what those tests test for, those COVID-19 tests for, all those tests test for is these 5 genetic materials. These 5 genetic materials that they are calling COVID-19. And those 5 genetic materials also comprise, in Dr. Kaufman's research, and they found that those 5 genetic materials also make an exosome. This exosome that's made of the same exact 5 genetic materials that the COVID-19 tests for is automatically produced. This exosome is produced by your autoimmune system in your body anytime your body comes under any attack. Any attack from any major virus.
It's known that the PCR test has a lot of false positives and a lot of false negatives.
Yes.
In fact, it's barely better than flipping a coin.
Yes. And it goes by the PCR center where they've scraped genetic material out of the lungs. And the genetic material that they've scraped out of the lungs, that they are saying that this genetic material, if you have COVID-19, then your body will produce this genetic material. Well, this genetic material that they're going off of also is the exact genetic material that this exosome is made out of, that your autoimmune system produces. Anytime you come into any kind of major attack from virus, like pneumonia, whooping cough, even heart attack, your body will produce this exosome. Okay? And so I guarantee you, and if you go to Andrew Kaufman's YouTube, he does it. He explains it perfectly, and all the medical technicalities. I mean, perfectly. And people that, if you have pneumonia, your body will produce these 5 genetic materials that comprise of this exosome. Okay, so if you go in and get the COVID-19 test, and you're going to have that exosome if you have pneumonia or if you have whooping cough or anything. They are misdiagnosing thousands of people that have pneumonia for COVID-19.
Hey, Jim, we got to let you go. Got to take another break
for commercial. Can you hold me over, Mike? Can you hold me over?
Okay, I'll hold you over. I'll stay on the line. We'll be right back.
Thanks.
Welcome back to our program here. We're talking with Jim in Montana. We're talking about the work by Andrew Kaufman and others pointing out that the current tests for the coronavirus are not as accurate as we would like them to be. So, Jim, just sort of pick up where you left off.
Yes, sir. Not nearly as accurate. It's scary, not accurate. And in fact, in Andrew Kaufman's video explaining this, he explains the statistics of the testing method they're doing, and it's an 80% miss rate. 80%. That's bad. Now, if you look at the numbers, if you look at the statistics, the number of pneumonia cases in the last couple months have gone down, have gone way down. Okay? They are misdiagnosed, like pneumonia, probably whooping cough, other respiratory illnesses for COVID-19, because people are just flooding to the hospitals if they get even the sniffles, and they're not diagnosing for anything else but COVID-19. And of course, a lot of them are going to come up positive for COVID-19 because those tests are all they're testing for is these 5 genetic materials that also make this exosome that your autoimmune system produces anytime you're under attack. You look into those tests that they are a Chinese-based model tests that we're going off of. We're going off of the test that the Chinese told us to use. Okay? And I wouldn't be surprised that that British journal or whatever where they found DNA, they found the genome of the COVID, they found a cell. I wouldn't be surprised if that cell was the exosome.
Well,
I wouldn't be surprised if that's
Jim, exosomes don't have protein spikes, and exosomes don't invade healthy cells.
that cell that they found in that journal, that British journal, that it has protein.
Yes, it has protein spikes. It's already been determined they're the same protein spikes you find on HIV. Anyway, Jim,
I'm not saying that COVID-19 doesn't. And one more quick thing, Michael. I'm sorry. One more quick. The reason and this is to Dustin in New Jersey. The reason people aren't wearing the face masks is because they know that the numbers aren't adding up. The numbers aren't adding up with pneumonia and everything else. And at the end of this year, you're all gonna feel like a bunch of fools when the rate of deaths from illnesses and stuff have changed. It's going to be the same as it is last year and the year before, because the pneumonia cases are going down, the whooping coughing cases are going down because they're being misdiagnosed because of these tests. And the people aren't being fooled by these numbers, and they're not going to be succumbed to fear and the fear-mongering. And we're Americans, and we're founded on give me liberty or give me death, okay? And if I can't have liberty, and if we can't have our freedom, and if I can't have freedom for my children, then what's the point? I'm not going to be a slave. And that's exactly what they're trying to do, succumb us to fear, okay? And those numbers are wrong, okay? And besides, colloidal silver and zinc together,
yes,
it will prevent you from getting any virus anyway. Okay, Dustin? So that's what you need to be preaching to people, is to take your colloidal silver and to take your zinc and to get back out there and get back to it. Because if we don't, and we just keep hunkering down and not get back to work and not get back to our economy, there's not going to be one to go back to. It's what they're trying to do. This isn't planned. This isn't planned. Of course this is agenda planned by the elites and Bill Gates and the Rothschilds and all of them. Please. This is meant to shut down all the small businesses. And so we're all working for the corporations. And it's meant to take away the paper dollar. So it's all digital. And they have complete control of all our money. And to roll out the 5G networks and everything else. Give me liberty or give me death. We got to stop being scared. We got to stop succumbing to the fear. We got to be Americans. All right,
okay,
that's
well,
all
Jim,
I say, Michael. I appreciate it.
Yeah, Jim, I got to let you go. I gave you a lot of time here, and we've got a lot of other callers waiting that I need to get to. So thank you for the phone call. We're going to switch over to, I am not sure how to pronounce this, Boas or Bose in Michigan. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
It's Blaze, B-L-A-S-E, Blaze.
Oh, there was a typo. Okay, Blaze in Michigan. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike, how you doing? Okay, real quick. So anyways, I walked into a Lowe's yesterday. I had to get some plumbing parts that I had to have, broken pipe, whatever. And lady's got a mask on behind the screen. We're talking about masks right now. And I'm like, okay, everything's cool. I got my paper mask on. I'm being cool. I got my plastic gloves on. I'm trying to follow the routine here. And while I'm at the counter, the lady's cell phone rings, right? So she pulls her mask down and grabs her cell phone. And I remember hearing that our cell phones are just as dirty as a toilet seat.
Yes.
Now, her cell phone is sitting down on the counter. And I'm thinking to myself, it's a true fact. I mean, if you knew the germs were on your cell phones, on your keyboard and so forth and on and all the things they touch. And I'm saying she's got her mouth pressed right up as she pulls her mask down, right against her cell phone. And I'm going like, wait a minute here. Didn't that just stop all of this whole situation right here? The mask, the gloves, everything. I mean, that just pulled it all away. So I turn around, and there's a guy in the aisle on the working on the lighting system, and he basically has one of those receivers talking to another guy pressed against his mouth, no mask on, and the whole situation goes on and on and on and on. So where's it all going here? I mean, you can't I'm going to go set my mask on the toilet seat tonight. I mean, I might be safer because I clean my toilet seat every day. I clean my bathroom up. Look, you see where I'm coming from here?
I see where you're coming from. I mean, once they pull that mask, the mask is not a fashion accessory. You're either going to wear the mask or you're not. And now I'm presuming that nobody else is touching these cell phones other than the owners. So how contagious they are is up for debate. But yeah, when you pull that mask down, first of all, any virus particles that are on the outside of the mask that have been trapped there go onto your fingers and your hands, and becomes another vector. They shouldn't be doing that.
She brought that cell phone into her break room, set it down wherever. Somebody sneezed in there. They say it lives on a surface they're claiming it lives on a surface for 17, 18 minutes. Okay, so the cell phone is right out. They're attached with all these electronics. And I'm thinking to myself, well, these cell phones are dirtier than a toilet seat. I've been hearing it for 2-3 years now. So I come with them alcohol wipes, and I constantly wipe my stuff down. I wipe my steering wheel down. I've been doing that for years. I've been in the trades. And I'm thinking to myself, these cell phones are carrying all these germs around. People got them pressed against their mouths. They got earbuds in. They got, they're spitting on them. They're sneezing on them. And these things are carrying all the germs too. So, and it goes with Dustin. I love Dustin to death. I like listening to that guy all the time. But I just got to say, the spread is going to happen no matter what. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. It's going to filter through. It's going to lower itself. It's going to drive itself crazy. It's going to reach a point where the germ or the disease actually starts driving itself crazy. It's going to go away. Eventually, it's just going to go away. It's going to dissipate. So that's my saying. That's what I'm saying. And thank you for taking my call, Michael.
All right, you've got it. We're going to switch over to Miles in Maine. Miles, hello. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hello, Michael. Well, it's happened. It appears like Doomsday Dustin has given way to Paranoid Paul. And I don't understand Dustin's thinking. It's getting farther away from you when he comes with this subject because, just go ahead, just do it. Well, if the police want to search your car, search your house, and you don't have nothing to hide, let's just go do it. Just let them. What's the sense in having any freedom?
Okay, well, I think
I don't understand that logic. And who's Dustin listening to, Drudge? Because all over the numbers have been down. They've been lowering completely, almost by the day. And he enlists the name of Steve Elkin. Well, Steve Elkin and his wife, if you listen to Steve Elkin, both work at the hospital. Both I'm sure Steve's accomplished, and apparently, and probably his wife is too, I would bet. And they've heard of no cases. None. So where does Dustin get this information? Next he'll be believing in global warming. So, he's just, I don't know, I guess he's getting bad information, but Dustin, it's just not happening. Your numbers aren't there. Well, thank you, Michael. I appreciate you taking my call.
All right, you got it. Thank you for the phone call. We're going to switch over to Mark in New York. Hello, Mark. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind today?
Hey, just a couple of things. One response to Paulie Proselytizer and the numbers I touched on from a couple of days ago. But when you called in, this guy full of vitriol, he mentions cowardice. But when the numbers are all done, and we're going to see whether it was carelessness by our country and Trump or cowardice. He was using the word shame. Shame is another guileful thing that you learn. The psychologists that I've read said shame is something that you're not really born with. You kind of learn it, and it's a form of manipulation. So every time he calls in and he gives the opinion, which Dustin is right. Okay, you're allowed to opinion, but there's a fine line to cross when you turn it around. And he did it again, and he turned it into that vitriolic voice of his, not Dustin, but you get my point. And then he started, and then he tries to guilt us into the thing, into I got a widow. Well, when I was like not even a teenager, my adopted mom died of diabetes. And my dad was a widowed with like multiple kids, and he hated Murphy Brown. And that's what I want to get. Now that leads me into the list that I have. Now I got 8 things. The top 2, heart disease and cancer. If people can imagine this like a bar, we got 600K. I'll be quick with this. And then accidents and respiratory disease are about 150K per year out of all the deaths in America. And then stroke and Alzheimer's, then diabetes, then pneumonia. All right, so pneumonia back a few years ago was about 50,000. Today, right now, we're up to 60,000. You know, I talk here a lot about the numbers, and I want to say, okay, to you, the question would be, okay, the numbers, so 60,000 die, but it's because of respiratory disease and all those other things, right?
Yes.
You know, these complications. So does that mean the respiratory disease of 150,000 goes down, and then it goes up in the flu? So in a way that the respiratory, or do both columns get checked? That the respiratory disease goes up 1, or the stroke goes up 1, or the heart disease goes up 1, along with the flu?
Well,
Does that make sense?
these are all based on, estimates and models. Nobody's out there actually doing a head count. And that's one of the reasons why the data does tend to be a little bit fuzzy. Right now, of course, as so many of the other callers have pointed out, doctors are literally being encouraged, if there's a death, say it was COVID-19. We had the head of the CDC come on out saying that a lot of the flu deaths this year were misdiagnosed COVID-19. So we're seeing a war between.
So is that like a new column then? Is that a new category then? Or is it pneumonia?
Well, COVID-19 is a viral pneumonia, and it's obviously would be classed as a respiratory disease.
All right. But, accidents are 150,000, twice as much, and that's risky jobs. So people stop work. You fall in your house. Do people now have to have, or traffic, and poison and infections that you hear about?
Yes.
So all this stuff. And diabetes beats pneumonia. So I just him calling in and then turning it around and then like ripping has a zing, zinging. That's not opinion. That's an effrontery, maybe even an insult to some people. So I think that's where the line has to be drawn. Sure, call in. And I looked up Sweden real quick. They have the toughest immigration policy. They don't let anybody in there unless you're there to work and to work there. I guess you could be a traveler, you can be tourism, but in the middle of the winter, February, coldest month of the year, who wants to go up there,
Great skiing.
So I thought about that, but there are better places to go skiing, like Italy. There's, I don't know if Sweden wins a lot of Olympic medals. They're there. I tried to look in there, but I didn't see it. They have mild winters, though, and whatever. But I just think it's like using the Netherlands as a socialism to compare. It's just not right, because we have an open door policy and everybody knows it, and all you got to do is just anchor baby and you're here. So it's I think he's comparing apples and oranges, and then turning it around against Trump and shaming. It's not going to happen, Paulie. No way. So that's all. You got other people. I want to call back again to how the government has failed on so many fronts. And I made an easy list of like 15 things just from listening to this show. I didn't even have to look up what the main things are. It's just a long list. The government, and look at how they're reacting to this. Look at New York State. They didn't know, we got too many. We don't have enough. We have too much. They're all over the place. Don't trust them. All right. Thank you, Mike.
All right. Yeah, it's a real problem, and it's been a problem since the very beginning that we don't have accurate data. We don't have data we can trust. We don't have data that we can rely on to tell us what's really going on. We're going to take a break for commercials. We're going to come back. We've got a couple more callers here for the last segment of our program. We'll be right back after these words from our sponsors. Welcome back to our show. Last segment of our program today. We're going to go back to the phone, starting with Charles in Canada. Charles, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. Yeah, the reason I was calling was I've got 2 words about the virus I'd like to say. One is prevention and the other is treatment. There's 2 doctors, one in Los Angeles and one in Chicago. Los Angeles and New York. Dr. Anthony Cardillo says the anti-malarial drug cures my COVID patients in 8 to 12 hours with enough zinc in it. And the same thing was repeated by Dr. Vladimir Zelenko, finds 100% success rate in 350 patients using I can never say that, with zinc.
Yeah,
chloroquine, I think it is. But
yes.
Mike Adams, the health ranger, says if you have enough vitamin C and vitamin D in conjunction with zinc, you want to take it in responsible amounts, you can't get the virus. That would be the prevention, which is what I'm doing. I'm trying to do that myself. But if I were to get it, I would look at those two treatments. One is prevention and one is treatment. And if that's the case, obviously people who have comorbidity factors like hypertension, I've got a little bit of high blood pressure myself, and diabetes and COPD, you've got to be especially careful. But,
yes.
The whole thing is we've got to, I believe, from my perspective, we have to be proactive in dealing with the virus as opposed to just trying to avoid it. And because it empowers you to actually try and deal with it and then get out and get our countries moving again.
Okay, well, yeah, I'm here and you're on the air. I'm hearing a lot about the importance of zinc because apparently it opens up the cell barriers and allows things like the chloroquine to get in, or even just ordinary quinine. Of course, vitamins are always good.
Well, the way it was explained to me is the anti-malarial drug is like the gun, and the zinc and the vitamins are the bullets. What it does is it increases the cell permeability, so that when you take the anti-malarial drug, the zinc and the vitamins go in much quicker, and it actually acts as a sort of armor against. You can't have the RNA replication. That's how I understand it. So. It's empowering to believe that we can defeat the virus instead of just trying to avoid it. Because one is, to me, is a fear reaction as opposed to, no, let's go out and kick it in the butt.
Well, the reality is that sooner or later, everybody's going to get exposed to this thing. The whole point of having the masks and flattening the curve is not to overwhelm the hospital system, which obviously has not happened. They're getting ready to take those Navy hospital ships back out of service here. They shut down that Army hospital they built in Seattle. It just didn't happen the way they said it was going to happen. Anyway, thank you for the phone call, Charles. We're going to take
one further wrinkle, if I could just throw it in there. There was one additional doctor who was a doctor in New York, and I'll be very quick. And he said he had a lot of patients coming in who they thought were COVID-19, but they actually had high altitude sickness in that they didn't have fluid in the lungs, but they couldn't breathe. And that is like what you get from 5G, from what I understand. Anyway, I just want to throw that in.
All right. Thanks an awful lot for that. We're going to switch to Fred in Iowa. Fred, are you there?
Game on that Jim in Montana. He committed treason. He told the truth. He had to beg for time.
Fred,
but
I'm
you
sorry.
give chance.
Fred, I'm sorry. We're at the end of the show.
All
Fred,
the time in
tomorrow.
the world.
Fred, call in tomorrow.
Phony.
Fred, call in tomorrow. Thank you very much. We're at the end of the show. Stay tuned for John Stedmiller. I'm sure he's got lots of interesting things to share with you. Remember, the front site deal is back on again. $500 one-time donation to RBN. You get a lifetime Commander membership. So we'll be back tomorrow. Aloha, America.